Hello and welcome to the board meeting recap for March. My name's J.D. Harden and I'm joined here again today by Superintendent Mary Elizabeth Davis, and we're excited to have you back with us for another discussion about all things that took place during our March board meetings, both our study session and our business session. We want to kick things off by talking a little bit about one of the most important things our school system needs, and that's money. And our budget discussion that took place this month was preceded a couple of months ago whenever we started in January with the launching of a budget development calendar. And of course, we shared that with the board. And then as we moved into February, we were able to host our first community conversation of this year. And that really provided some rich feedback from our community about the priorities they wanted to see realized in this new budget as we move for the FY20 budget, I should say. I should clarify. A couple of things they really wanted to see that we heard quite frequently were things like a compensation package, a fair compensation package for our district, for our employees, as well as a good balance between digital and print resources for our students to learn with. Now we're into March, and we're moving full steam ahead with the goal of hopefully having a budget presented by May. Can you tell us where we are now in this process?
Sure, that's right, and it's March, and JD, thank you for having me, and thank you for joining us. And as we approached our March study session, it was, of course, top of our mind to address our FY20 budget development. And our CFO, Christy Willis, articulated the projections that we are able to share publicly for our state revenue sources and our local revenue sources. And it does appear as though we are expecting to have a very stable starting point to plan our FY20 budget. Our state revenue has increased, mostly due to the governor passing along a salary increase for our certified employees. And it does appear as though our local revenues, our local tax digest continues to grow. Once we have a sense of how we can anticipate revenue to solidify as we head into April, we can now balance that with those priorities we learned from our community conversation, as well as the ongoing conversations that our members of the Board of Education have in the community. It was clear that our Board of Education sees a value in being a competitive district to make sure that we are attracting the highest qualified and most quality and most effective educators and support staff to our organization, because we know that the quality of a child's learning experience is highly dependent on the teachers and the support personnel that surround them. And it was also important to our Board of Education that we balance our digital resources with print resources and continue to enhance the experience that teachers have in planning instruction, students have in learning, and families have as they connect their learning at home. We are really in the very preliminary stages of developing our FY20 budget, but it is the objective to present to the board at the April 8th study session a tentative budget for their consideration. And so that's just about where we are in the budget development process.
And we've been very excited about the several years of balanced budgets that we've been able to accomplish. Very, very important that we are good stewards of taxpayers' money, and the board, as well as the leadership within our school system, has done a great job of ensuring that has been the case. So. Right after that presentation, we were able to hear from our financial report for the month of February, as well as a construction report from Mr. Josh Malcolm, who always does a great job sharing all the wonderful construction news all around the district. But right after that, some really heavy items on our agenda that took up the majority of the time of our study session, and those are three policies that the board was hearing about that they will take action on soon. After our community has the opportunity to kind of weigh in and examine these policies. But one of the major ones that our board is really undertaking is that of a theory of action or a plan of action. Share with our viewers what that entails and what that means for our school system.
Yes, of course, one of the primary responsibilities of the Board of Education is to ensure that we have sound policies that really stand to provide stability and long-term success for our organization. As a Board of Education, we have been studying what are boards of educations of high-performing districts across this country doing, how are they leveraging their responsibility for policy development in order to ensure that we are focused as an organization, clear about our priorities, and most importantly, dedicated to improving student performance. Henry's plan of action was shared for the first time by our Board of Education, and each board member shared their perspectives on the work that went into developing this plan of action. This is a very exciting moment for Henry County Schools, where the Board of Education has made clear to each of us who work as employees on behalf of this great system that we are in it together in order to focus our efforts, our systems, our processes, and our budget development on students and student learning outcomes. And this is going to be an exceptionally important season in which our community has the opportunity to provide some feedback and some input into the language of that board policy called Henry's Plan of Action. And we will look for opportunities to have focused conversations so that we can ensure that the community's values are very prominently evident in the language of the policy. This is a very exciting time and a very important reform policy for our Board of Education.
Exactly right. And of course, coupled with that, there were two other policies that the board heard from. Mr. Carl Knowlton, who's our chief of staff for the school system, one of those was about our grading systems. And of course, each year we tend to have a few parents who ask questions about how that impacts Henry County schools. And if you could share a little bit about what the board's focus is in trying to streamline that, I guess, if you will.
Sure. Actually, grading and grade reporting is incredibly complex and very personal to people. It's also a really vital way in which families feel highly connected to their students' learning and their child's progress throughout an academic year. So there's actually been several previous years of effort dedicated to really grappling with improving and updating our grade reporting process and the policy that governs it. And actually this past year, we were able to facilitate specific focus groups. 66 unique focus groups came together to really provide insight into the priorities of communicating student progress in the academic year through grade reporting. It has resulted in a draft policy that the board was able to share for the first time at this March board meeting, and it now will be available for public comment and public review until our April 8th board meeting. Once we have a policy that is in place, there will be an important coupling of a regulation. That administrative regulation will give all of the details of the processes that will be in effect for the 2019-20 school year. But this is a really important conversation. We are actually going to talk about the standards-based report card that is utilized in our grades 1 through 4. And how is it that we make sure families feel really well informed in those years of their students' progress? And how are we ensuring that that document, that grade reporting tool, is very valuable to our teachers and is teacher-friendly and is a great space to communicate that progress? And so I anticipate that we will see some modernization and updating to that grade reporting tool used in grades 1 through 4. There's also regulatory language that is going to need to address how we ensure that we calculate GPA in our high schools and how we make sure that our grade books and our grade reporting techniques from school to school are as consistent as possible. This is a very powerful and comprehensive and complex topic that the board policy just begins to address. And we are looking and excited to see the type of community feedback that might be accomplished over the next month.
And just to briefly touch on that last policy that Mr. Knowlton, or Dr. Knowlton, excuse me, was able to share, and that was about our instructional materials for the district. If you'll just share a little bit about that as well.
Sure. So the third policy that the board was able to review and share publicly related to our instructional resources. And you see, last month we talked about an instructional resource audit that was facilitated, and we have realized a really essential gap that needs to be filled in the instructional resources that teachers have at their fingertips and that students and parents have for their learning experiences. And so the board will go ahead and take action on this board policy in April, and by doing so, we will institute assurances that all students have access to core resources in their content areas in each and every one of our schools.
Now, another large portion of that study session was there was some time dedicated to talking about a new kind of initiative that may have been part of our strategic priorities for the district, and it's a feature that we're kind of dubbing Henry Connects. And this really is something that's going to enable our community to have greater access to a lot of the resources and things all throughout the kind of the digital ecosystem, if you will. A little bit more about that, I think it would help our audience understand where we're moving with that.
I think you're going to hear some consistent updates from both myself, our organization, and our Board of Education. We are really dedicated to ensuring that this is the best possible place to teach and the best possible place for a student to learn. And in doing so, we know that teachers need fingertip access to all of the digital resources that we have access to in our organization, and so do students. But we're going to constantly be balancing that with what type of print resources also need to be available for students in their classrooms and for families to have at home. Well, Dr. Blanton, our Chief Information Officer, along with Ms. Morse, our Chief Performance and Learning Officer, were able to co-present the concept for Henry Connects. Henry Connects really represents what will be a one-stop shop for starting with our teachers, followed by our families, and then our students, to have digital access to the resources that our organization has either purchased, acquired, or has created locally and now has the opportunity to curate and share in one place. There's going to be a space for teachers to have immediate access to grade level resources so that it's right at their fingertip to support their planning. And there's going to be a space for communities so that our teachers who are involved in specific or specialized instructional areas or who are coordinators of clubs at their schools might be able to plug into a digital community where their discussion boards and their professional learning and their sharing of resources can be very specific and unique to that particular category of employees. It's a pretty exciting time, but of course we're at the beginning. We launched the concept and the development timeline, and this is something we will see unfolding starting here in our springtime. And really, it'll take a little bit of time, a couple months, even into the next year, for us to see this come to full circle.
To round out the informational items as a part of our study session, we got to hear a presentation from Dr. Raymond Bryant, who is our Chief Operations Officer. And what his presentation really covered was two new schools that are going to be replacing current schools in our system. And those two new schools would be McDonough High School and McDonough Middle School, both replacing Henry County High School and Henry County Middle School. Thanks to the voter support for our latest eSPLOS. We're really excited about that. His presentation gave our board and those in the audience a chance to see kind of where we are, where we stand with that construction, and of course a lot of exciting stuff happening with those buildings coming out of the ground, all aimed at starting school August 1st of this year. Also important for people to keep in mind that there are no changes to our school zones for those particular schools. Those students who currently attend Henry County High School and Middle School will attend their new schools at McDonough High School and Middle School, both still being the Warhawks. We saw some great logos, so a lot of exciting stuff. I know I keep saying that. It is exciting if you can't tell. We're really looking forward to those schools opening up and welcoming students to those schools August 1st. We do know that our ribbon cutting for those schools will be July 30th, so stay tuned. We will be sharing more information as we get closer to that date. There were a few items that moved us into the business meeting later on. Those were business items, and we'll cover those a little bit later. But that pretty much wrapped up our study session that evening.
That's right. Yeah. It was a great study session, and it was a perfect reflection of just how dedicated our Board of Education is to working together, rigorously solving for opportunities to improve as a district. And there was a lot of exceptional dialogue among our board members and questions for our presenters of each of our agenda items. And overall, I thought it was a very productive time together.
And after a quick break, we were glad to jump right into our business session. A lot of people were there that evening because we had a lot of people to recognize and celebrate from all across our district. One of the first things we get to do is hear from students. We heard two students from Touchdown High School provide a musical selection for our board members as inspiration. And right after that were our awards and recognition. And we had 5 big groups that we were able to recognize that evening. One was our science and engineering fair winners from our junior division and our senior division. Several students were able to be recognized that evening. Some students moving on to the state competition, and even one student who will be moving on to the world competition competition in Phoenix, Arizona later in the year. We also had our state wrestling winners, championship winners. Bit of history been made here for Henry County Schools. Ola High School had the first 116-pound class division female winner, Amani Jones. Congratulations to her. History in the making. The first year GHSA has recognized female wrestlers, and we're very proud of her and her accomplishments. She was joined on the top level of the podium in 2 different weight classes by her male counterparts there at Ola High School, Mr. Jackson DeSario and Jack Howery. They were both recognized as state championship winners, and then of course their coaches, including being led by Joey DeNino, were recognized. And Joey DeNino is the GHSA Wrestling Coach of the Year for the state. Really incredible stuff. Ola just kept rolling because we also had Miss Stacy Schmuel, who was recognized as the Georgia Cheerleading Coaches Association Cheer Coach of the Year. Again, for the entire state of Georgia. Really big stuff. A lot of good coaches over there at Ola High School. And then our last group was the star student and star teacher who were named for Henry County, and that was Mr. Kyle Carden and Miss Rita Prescott from Union Grove High School. Pretty soon, they'll be moving on to the regional competition for an opportunity to then go on to the state competition. And last but certainly not least, we got the opportunity to recognize one of our students who got the chance to page at the Capitol. General Assembly is going on right now. Olivia Miller was represented, or was able to represent Henry County Schools and page for Senator Burt Jones here recently during the General Assembly. So a lot of good stuff right there. A lot of recognition that we always enjoy being able to share with everybody, and of course everybody loves to come out and see that happen. And moving right along, out of our awards and recognition portion of the meeting, we transition then to our business items. 3 big items on the agenda for this evening's meeting. Can you share a little bit about what the board took action on?
Sure. First action item for the board was actually to nominate a delegate for the GSBA Assembly. Annually, the Georgia School Boards Association asks that local boards of education nominate one of the board members to represent the full board at the annual GSBA convention in June. The board had a motion to nominate Mrs. Annette Edwards, and Mrs. Edwards was subsequently voted in to be our GSBA delegate member this year. Our second item for the board to consider and take action on was our Group 11 bids. You know, this is actually a pretty exciting moment where what started in just 2013 to ensure that all of our 50 school and school campuses were recipients of upgrades, renovations, and modernizations comes to a full circle. This is the last group of schools, the Locust Grove cluster, that will now receive their Group 11 upgrades and renovations to their campuses. The board approved the lowest bid, and that work will begin shortly. And then finally, the board took action on community use requests and the personnel as presented in executive session. I do want to welcome to our team that one person on that personnel agenda included the Executive Director for Human Resources. So welcome to Henry County Schools, Dr. Johnson.
And to wrap up our board meeting, each and every week we get the opportunity to hear from our board members and the wonderful things that they've been seeing all across our district and their respective districts. And then we were able to recognize our board members for a very important reason, in addition to some other monthly recognitions. Would you like to share a little bit about our board members?
Sure. So I do want to start by saying that it is School Nutrition Appreciation Month, and I think it's a great opportunity to take a moment and thank those employees who work behind the scenes to make sure that our students have a healthy breakfast and a healthy lunch and lots of healthy snacks a lot of times in between, and really are contributing to healthy minds and healthy bodies and healthy kids. And so thank you to all of our school nutrition employees. We really appreciate you. It also happens to be Social Worker Appreciation Month, and there's no better time in our country's history than now to see just how instrumental the role of social workers play in our local school communities. To all of our social workers in Henry County Schools, we are so thankful for you. Thank you for everything you do to meet each and every one of us, adults, students, family members, right where we are, and make us just feel so connected. But we did wrap up by really taking a moment to say a very special thank you, and that was to the members of our Board of Education. In the state of Georgia, next week, March 17th, happens to be School Board Appreciation Week. This is a great time for you two to pause and to send a quick thank you to your locally elected Board of Education member. Our Board of Education really does have a heart for kids, and they have a heart for community. And it is beyond an honor to work alongside their dedicated and focused leadership. It was a chance for us to celebrate them with a standing ovation. We offered them certificates and a small token of appreciation, and we celebrated them because it really is just an essential job to ensuring that we have a strong and thriving community. So thank you to the members of the Henry County Board of Education.
Superintendent Davis, we are in March. We're moving full steam ahead to April. Spring break is upon us. We'll soon be having testing for our students. We're really excited. All the hard work all throughout the year is leading up to next month. So a lot of exciting stuff as we come to the very end, believe it or not, of our school year. It's fast approaching. Folks, we know that there's a lot of things you could be doing right now, and we greatly appreciate the time you've spent right now with us, hearing about all the things that are important here for your local school system. We appreciate it more than you know, and we hope that you found this time and this information very, very valuable and informative. As always, J.D. Harden, Superintendent Mary Elizabeth Davis, thank you once again, and we'll see you in April.
Thank you.
As is the case with most board meetings, there's a lot more information that you're able to witness being there in person or watching the full version on demand that we're unable to bring to you here in this very short board meeting recap. The links to those presentations and videos can be found in the description section directly below this video.